Okay, so we're over in our text editor. The first thing that we want to do is mark up our page just as a basic sort of HTML document. Then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to load in the jQuery library so we can actually make use of the Ajax method that we've been talking about in the last video. And then finally what we're going to do is just call the Ajax method and just check that we don't have any errors, just to make sure that jQuery has been loaded in correctly. So let's go ahead and just start to mark up our document. We're going to include a doc type at the top of the page here, and then we're going to open and close our HTML tags. We're going to give the document a head and also a body, and we'll go ahead and put a title in here as well. So we'll call this jQuery Ajax. Okay, so in the body we need to include two scripts now. The first one's going to be an on-page script. The second one's going to be external. Now the reason I'm doing this as an on-page script, and by this I mean I'm just going to open and close a script tag here, and I'm going to write all my code in here. It just makes it easy for us to see what we're doing on the page, but ideally what you'd want is our external link to the jQuery library, and then you'd want another external link to a file on your web server, so a JavaScript file that you store your JavaScript code in. It's obviously bad practice to do everything on the same page, but for the sake of this video, we'll just do it on the same page to make it look a little easier. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is go and head over to Google hosted libraries. Now for jQuery to be stored on Google hosted libraries means a couple of things. This is the little snippet that we're going to use to include it. So it's basically just a script tag with a double // meaning this is going to work for HTTPS and HTTP connections. And that basically just links to the latest version or the latest stored version of jQuery. So why do we use Google hosted libraries? Well, first of all, this will be routed through their CDN. So you'll have, or through their content delivery network. So you'll basically have a fast download, or potentially faster download of this file than you would from your own server. And also this means that the file here, if used elsewhere, has already been cached with that particular user. So this file may already be cached with the user if another site's use Google hosted libraries, so it makes it a lot quicker to download. The jQuery library is not too heavy, but it helps to try and speed things up as much as possible. So now that we've loaded in jQuery, let's just go ahead and hit our page here. Let's just get rid of both of these. And see if anything happens. Well, nothing happens. We've got our title here that we specified and nothing at all. Now I have the console open here, which I've got by just right clicking and inspecting anywhere, or you can also pull it from the menu here. But I'm over in my console now. We're going to be outputting things to the console to actually be able to test if things have worked or not. So bring up your console now and we'll be able to see if we get any JavaScript errors, or if we want to log any data out or anything like that. So what I'm now going to do is, as previously mentioned, open my script tag and close my script tag. This is just going to be where I output, or do all of the code, so we can see it in relation to the markup that we're going to include on the page just here. So just for now, let's go ahead and just console log something out, just so we can see what it looks like when we log something to the console. So I'm just going to write hello. So I'm going to hop over to my browser and refresh, and you'll see that we've got hello output to the console here. Now what we can also do inside of the console is we can access certain things as well. So a little tutorial aside on the console, let's just say I create a global variable called name and I set this to Alex. What happens when I open my page? Well, nothing is in the console at all. But when I go ahead and type in name, you'll see that this gives me the value of name back. So what I'm doing here is I'm controlling the page through this console, and this is extremely useful when you're working with functionality like Ajax, because you can see the responses you get back and you can debug things a lot quicker. So this is pretty much essential when we're working with this kind of functionality. So the last thing that we're going to do now is actually check that jQuery was loaded in properly and we can actually access the Ajax method, and I'll show you a couple of ways that we can do that. Now the first way is the way that we saw in the documentation earlier. We saw the Ajax method listed as jQuery.Ajax like this. So if we go ahead and call this, this is the method here, and this is the object that we're accessing. So it's the jQuery object that we've loaded in here. So now when I go ahead and refresh my page, you'll see that nothing happens, we don't get any errors. Now how do we know that this has worked? Well, let's just invent a method as part of the jQuery library. This method does not exist. So what would happen if we did have an error here? Well, we see here an object function has no method ABCDEFG. So the jQuery object does not have this method available. So we know that by using Ajax here, this has worked. So the other way that we can do this is by using jQuery's sort of alias, if you like, or alternative object name, which is the $sign. So you'll see things like when we do selectors, we'll use this functionality. So say we had a class of name on the page, we can do things like that to get the text within it. So that's just a little bit how this works, but we'll see a lot more of this later. So here we have the jQuery Ajax method being called on the page. Let's go over to our browser again and just hit refresh. You see that we've got no errors at all. We're basically on track. We know that we've included jQuery. We know that we can start using the Ajax method. And in the next video, we'll actually start to Ajax to some files, get the contents back, and do some cool things with that.